Okay, so once you've done a good job planning for your movie during week 1, it's time to produce the movie during week 2. And so there's things to think about. So your students have probably already planned the sound effects and the music that they will want to use. They probably did that during week 1. So for that, if you're going to use music in the background, like you'll play it in the background and they'll speak over it, then I generally just use YouTube. But you want to be careful because sorry if I scared you there. But actually, I've done that before. I've just typed in the music or the sound effect that I wanted, and then something not appropriate for students pops up, and it scared them. And so you just want to be careful that you have it prepared before class so that you don't run into any awkward situations. And then if you want to use any sound effects, then it's really easy. You just go to Google or YouTube and type in what you're looking for and then the word sound effect right after. So I don't know, for example, doorbell sound effect. And then you're going to get a whole list of different ones. And then you can just play it as the students need it when they're acting. And it will be a great addition to add quality. The next thing to think about when producing your movie is how to work with some of the challenging students, how to direct them well. So I'll give you some ideas about how you can help them. So the first set of students are the shy students. And what I found works best is for you to do it yourself. Actions speak louder than words. If you are not willing to do it, the students will absolutely not be willing to do it. So in the movie April Island, you saw one of the students say, "I'm Superman, I'll save my honey bunny." Well, he was originally really embarrassed to do that. So I first showed him how to do it, and I did it with even more energy than I would want him to do it. And I did it as fully as I could to demonstrate exactly what I wanted. And so beyond showing him what I wanted, it made a statement to the rest of the students. So it wasn't, this boy Ted willing to be like this. It was, oh, Megan teacher's making him. So it kind of took away some of his embarrassment or shyness, if you will. The next type of student you might run into is a student with a lack of motivation. And we generally see this with the higher levels like sapling. So the best advice I can give you is to encourage them. To give you an example, one of my sapling classes in the beginning of the term, they do not love making creative thinking projects. And, it really was frustrating because I was putting in a lot of effort and I wanted them to like it. And I can remember the first movie that we made. They were a family of 4, and I wanted one of the students to say, "Oh, honey, I'm home. What do you want for dinner?" And he just would not do it. And they were all slouched in their chairs, and it wasn't that great. But instead of getting upset, we just kept plugging along every week. And, I would really try to encourage them. And it was up to me to remain as positive as I could throughout this class. And by the end of the term, I really was shocked. The last creative thinking project we made was a home shopping show, and they had to design some bags, like a Amazon bag, an Antarctica bag, desert bag, and then they had to sell it on this home shopping show. And I paired boys and girls again, and the boys I put a runway, a model runway in the background, and they were walking up and down this runway and modeling the bags, and the girls were describing the bags like, "Kyle here is wearing our Antarctica bag," in this really funny voice, and they really had fun at the end of it, and I was so proud of that because I had seen how far they had come, and it would have only happened if I had continued encouraging them. And the last type of student you might run into is a student who has difficulty following directions. And generally, I think this is because they just don't fully understand. So we're telling them things and they're nodding yes because they don't want to stop us, but they don't really understand. So the best thing I can tell you is to give some cues. So here's a 1 year tip. It took me 1 year to learn how to do this. It's pretty much common sense. But anyways, I know this picture, pardon the picture, it was the only one I had. It's market day, so the room's a mess. Anyways, this is basically what the stage looks like. So the platform that they stand on, up here, this blue screen will come down. Anyways, if the students stand on this edge here, or even this edge over here, it won't show them in the video. So I spent a whole year constantly like waving at them, telling them to move over. And it made the videos look really weird. So what I did was just put a little bit of tape along here. I don't know if you can look closely, you might be able to see it. And yep, problem solved, there you go. So give them some cues. Another issue is sometimes you'll tell them, okay, when do your speaking and then go off. And they'll say, okay. And they'll do their speaking and then they'll just keep standing there. So what I found is if I put chairs along here and I tell them, okay, finish your speaking and go sit down, then generally they can do that. So cues really help. Another big issue that you'll run into is that some students will not be memorized. So what can you do? Well, there are some tips I can give you. The first thing is you can select the recording order. But to be honest, this really only works once you have the students on your side. So whichever group is memorized the best can start recording soonest. Next one, repeat and record. So this works especially well for lower levels like seed, and if you do teach seabed, it can work for that as well. So what I mean by repeat and record is this basically will be the chroma key system that is on your desktop. I just made this, I didn't have a picture of it. But anyways, so when you are looking at your desktop, the students who are acting on stage, you'll see them here. And then there's generally 3 buttons that you can press: record, stop, and then you can change the settings. This is where you get your backgrounds and things. Anyways, so what you'll say is you want to say the line. So maybe the line would be, what do you want to drink? So you'll say, what do you want to drink? And then hit record. And then generally students can always say it right back to you. So in the case that they're not memorized and it's a short line, then say it to them, press record, and then they'll say it back to you. And then when you put it into the movie maker later, even though it's just one line, it won't look bad at all. The next thing that you can do is make the scenes, make the scenes smaller. So for example, let's say that you are making a news report and you are on the interview scene that you're recording. Well, the interview is probably going to be a lot longer. Maybe, for example, it could have 3 questions and then 3 responses. Well, instead of doing those 3 questions in one take, cut it down into 3 scenes. So 1 question and a response, 2nd question and a response, 3rd and a response. And then that will make it a lot easier for them. And lastly, write it out for them. But you have to be really careful about this because you don't want them to rely on it. And the last thing that you want to keep in mind is you should be sure to adjust the creative thinking projects. So I know that sometimes writing it out seems like, we are just telling them. But I think that, by still allowing students to, even if they didn't memorize, have a good final product and still feel that they were treated with respect, then they'll be more likely to do a better job next time. So if they didn't memorize, then just give them a lower score. But even if they don't memorize and they're reading the line or repeating it after you, they can still do that and do gestures, and generally you can still get a great finished product. Keeping kids quiet when recording is so important. In the second video that wasn't so great of mine, you could hear the kids talking and moving, and so it really took away from the quality. So the first thing that you want to do is tell the students your expectations. So this is just an example. This is what I would do. Before I would start recording, I would always have the same conversation. I would say, okay, remember, when we start recording, when teacher says go, then you have to be silent. And when teacher says stop, then you can quietly speak. And so it was really amazing because we would have the groups up on the stage and I'd say, okay, go. And the whole room would go silent. And then they would do their scene and that's that. And I'd say, stop. And then just quickly, people would start talking quietly. And they felt it was really fair and it was no problem for me. So just set them up with your expectation. And I always say that you should give them something to do. So some things that they can do, homework, you could print a worksheet for them. If your school allows it, you have to be careful, but they could bring something from home. That's what I like to have them do. They felt like, oh yeah, I get to go to April and make a movie and also play with my toy from home. So anyways, to quickly give you some examples of homework that they can do, this really goes for all the levels, seed through sapling. So for reading, I guess sapling only interactive reading they could do. Also comprehension checkup. So if you remember from the trainings, we said that they don't really need to write these like long sentences out. It goes same thing for visual mapping. They just wrote keywords. Well, what you can have them do is go back to the textbook and then actually write out these sentences. And that'll help them later on when they study for their book test. There's also some writing homework that they can do. So seed, they never finish these sentences, or they can always write more. So you could have them open up to that page. Or if it's sapling, sprouter sapling, have them work on their pre-writing too, or their writing notebooks, or their revisions for their writing notebooks. So there are two commonly asked questions that I generally get. I think they're excellent questions. The first one is, what do I do if I don't finish recording? Because, the mothers are waiting to see it and, it could be, it's definitely a real situation. Sometimes, students aren't as prepared, or maybe, we as teacher had too high of expectations and we couldn't finish it. So in the case that we didn't finish recording, what I would do is, in the Movie Maker, just include the videos that we finished, and then I add a page with just text that explains what happens at the end. So I'll say something like, and 2 days later, ... and then type out the ending. It's not perfect, but at least it's something, and then I know to adjust my expectations the next time. But you don't want to go into like finishing up the next week because you'll run out of time. So if that happens, write in some text and then start again fresh the next week. The second question is, what recording order do you use? So what I found works best is whenever I do I guess I should say, the scenes are generally similar. So I will have every group do scene 1 at the same time. And that's because the first group will make many mistakes. But all the other kids are watching them and they see what they should be doing. So it makes the recording go a lot faster. So I do all the scene 1s, okay, then do all the scene 2s. And also when I keep it rotating like that, no group is getting bored recording, or, no group of kids getting too rowdy because they're constantly up and down. So one thing to always keep in mind is it's so important to stay organized as you record all the scenes. If you think about it, you could have, let's say, 12 kids in the class, 3 groups, and let's say they all do 4 scenes each. So that's 12, scenes for the class, times that by, 6 classes for the day, and you're going to have a lot of scenes. And I've definitely done it where I didn't label everything right away, and it took me a half an hour at the end of school to organize all the files. So I'm going to show you my system, but really you just need to find any system that works for you. So when you record a movie, so if your chroma key system open, you hit record, you hit stop, then it's going to automatically save the files into a file that's on your desktop. So mine's labeled Spring Term Movies, and when you open it, a couple things to notice here. First, I have all my classes listed here and labeled because that's where I end up saving the movies for later. Now, when you record a movie, it's going to save in a file underneath. It'll be a set of numbers. So that's what you want to go ahead and label. So for example, let's say this was my first group and it was a scene 1. I would label it G1S1, group 1, scene 1. and then record the next movie, and then let's say that that's group 1, group 2, scene 1. And then I just keep recording all of the scenes for the class. And then once I'm done, I'm going to have this whole long list. And then all I do then is drag it into the class for that day. So at the end, what it ends up looking like is this one. So it's a whole list. And then later on, I can just drag and drop it very easily into my movie maker. And so finally, what you need to do is once you have all those files, you'll need to put it into a movie maker. So right here, I've downloaded this on the computer in the office. There's no issue. You can download this for free. This is what I always use, Windows Movie Maker, but there are so many different options. And then all I did was use this 5-minute video tutorial to learn everything that I have done all along. So I feel really confident that if you watch this video and download this, then you'll be ready to go. And that's all the tips I have for you. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope you have a lot of fun.